Welcome to Startup Success, the podcast for startup founders and investors. Here you'll find stories of success from others in the trenches as they work to scale some of the fastest growing startups in the world. Stories that will help you in your own journey. Startup Success starts now.
Welcome to Startup Success. Today we have Suzanne Fletcher in studio, who is a founder and general partner of Zelda Ventures. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you so much, Kate. Thrilled to be here.
We're excited to have you. So, I want to get into your background, but I actually want to start just by congratulating you. You raised and started Zelda Ventures last year in 2023, which was a difficult time, and you closed with 33 million. Is that correct?
That is for my Fund One.
That is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here with all of that going on. So, walk us through your background and what led to this amazing accomplishment.
Well, thank you, Kate, and just a lot of things, right? It was very much kind of building up to be in a place where I could do this from my career, which has now been about 25 years. I've spent 20 years of it as an investor. The first decade of that I spent on the secondary side. So similar to fund of funds, buying diverse portfolios of a liquid interest, including venture capital. So saw a little bit of a lot of things and learned from phenomenal mentors, which I think has been a theme throughout my career and what I've done. And then the last decade in direct venture. Within early stage venture capital, two formative experiences working at StartX, the Stanford entrepreneur community. I'm happy to talk about more. And then at another fund that I joined very early on and got the privilege to kind of see it scale and work on lead style investing kind of before hanging my own shingle, right? And jumping off the deep end on my own here.
That's so great. I can see how those experiences could really build on each other and, set you up for being really knowledgeable in this space. What motivated you now to go out and form Zelda Ventures? Like, what was the catalyst for Zelda?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so what Zelda does is we invest in the next companies of founders I've worked with in the past at pre-seed. So I had the privilege at StartX to work with over 900 founders as kind of first degree connections, mostly on fundraising as they raised early stage capital. And we invested on behalf of Stanford University in a vehicle that they had. And what I do now with Zelda Ventures is I look at that network's next companies as founders start new endeavors, because that's a population I inherently have good knowledge of, good relationships with, and thus an advantage in. So what made me feel kind of ready to do it now in maybe an apocalyptic market fundraising conditions, other than being, slightly crazy, it was really two beliefs, right? It was a belief in the market opportunity to back serial entrepreneurs in this particularly coveted kind of vein of deal flow. So it was the market opportunity. And then second, I would say I kind of manifested enough belief in my own skill set over these years to feel like I could do it and to feel at least like 90% enough that I could do it, that I was ready to kind of go and take the chance.
That's exciting. So, okay, your investment philosophy, the fact that you're investing in founders that you've worked with before at an earlier stage, walk us through that because that's something we haven't heard on this show before. I haven't seen.
Yeah, I think it's far from unique. I think the thought of we like to back serial entrepreneurs is something a lot of VCs say, and it's very understandable why in terms of the experience set that folks are bringing to a next endeavor that they pursue. In my particular case, that's kind of all I'm doing. It's the primary kind of lens in which we're looking at things. And that's because of a very kind of unique set of circumstances and seat that I sat in to be able to work with so many phenomenal entrepreneurs. So I definitely don't think it's the world's most I guess I would say, let me pause and just think of the right word. Like, it's not the most unique thesis, but it's one where if you can execute it due to your skill set, it's particularly compelling, just given the success rates of serial entrepreneurs.
That's interesting. So the feeder though is StartX, correct?
Yeah, it's really my 20 years in the investing industry, five
Okay.
of which was spent at StartX, but that's where I did a considerable amount of investing and just have a very large network of entrepreneurs from.
Okay. Okay. So that makes sense. So then, okay, before we delve a little longer, maybe we should get into StartX a little bit more and what that experience was like and what they do.
Yeah, StartX is kind of one of the premier entrepreneur communities serving Stanford University, serving their alumni, professors, student startups. It was started almost 15 years ago now by founder and chairman Cameron Titleman, seeing the opportunity for entrepreneurs to really accelerate their learning through a trusted community, right? And what that brings in terms of your ability to accelerate your own learnings and just what communities can do for entrepreneurs. So, run as a nonprofit, extremely mission aligned, with the goal of just helping entrepreneurs. And so, really vibrant community today. It's run cohort style, but also kind of very engaged with their 1,500 or so kind of alumni that are part of it.
And how did you work with the organization? I love that they're a nonprofit.
Yeah, very, very unusual.
Yes.
Very unusual to staff and unusual in the venture world. And I think it makes it pretty unique in terms of the mission alignment with entrepreneurs, and the emotional reaction, right, or
Hmm.
connection that entrepreneurs have to the organization. I managed the co-invest vehicle that they had there for about 5 years. Participating in the rounds raised by those entrepreneurs, but also just helping them fundraise and navigate that process, often as a first time entrepreneur in something that was unfamiliar, but something that, as an organization like StartX, we were able to kind of have a macro lens and see some of those market trends, different venture capital funds, participation. We were just a co investor in our vehicle, but just to help founders kind of navigate that process for the first time.
That's great. Gosh. Okay. I think everyone listening should check that out for sure. So then that kind of led that all those experiences led to Zelda Ventures. So how was your fundraising experience this past year? What did you learn?
Yeah, it's try to think the right words for it. I'm very thankful for having been able to get it done. I think it's always true, right? If it's a difficult fundraising environment, it's maybe a great environment for investing, and those two things are just naturally kind of counterbalances with each other. Um,
Mhm.
I think I have a very clear thesis in what I'm investing in, and then ability to translate that to a competitive advantage of why I would be good at that, which is really what enabled me to raise the fund. But that said, it was still a difficult process where you really have to put in the time, and spend about a year raising the fund, start to finish, but got pretty broad support from a number of different family offices, some more established funds, GPs of other funds, and entrepreneurs. Actually, a lot of the entrepreneurs from the StartX community came in as investors in my fund too, which was especially kind of meaningful to me.
Wow, that says a lot right there. Seriously.
It's really special capital.
Yes. Yes. Well, congratulations again. So, based on this, now that you're investing in founders that you've worked with before, what types of things are you looking for?
Yeah, so I am an industry generalist.
Oh,
That kind of theme of seeing a little bit across a lot of things has held true kind of across my entire career. And I'm also a believer that at the earliest stages, that it is very much a person driven business and you're investing in an entrepreneur. So my kind of framework or rubric, if you will, that I use for making an early stage investment, it's heavily informed by my time at Stanford StartX. We see 1,000 Stanford affiliated startups a year. We'd run them through a pretty rigorous interview process, and that was enough over the course of 5 years. Now it's been 10 years since the beginning of that experience to see those cycles of why you make certain decisions and how it plays out. The feedback cycle is so long. And so it
mhm.
has really helped to have such a long period of experience to see why are these the criteria, or what happens when you verify them. When should you make a exception to them? But so the four kind of, as I think about it, and as I've kind of been trained, right, is passion and commitment first, team dynamics second, execution skills third, and then kind of idea and fundraise fourth, right? And you'd put that idea right in your idea picking, idea specific VC category. And that's not what I lead with. It's really about the why a founder is working on something, and can he or she convince me that that's their passion, right? That's their through line. And usually when you've known someone a while, you can connect the dots, you understand why they're doing something, what's motivating them to do something new. It may be the through line of really caring about patient outcomes, really caring about cybersecurity. There's usually kind of connecting things that make sense. Team dynamic, kind of the complementary skill set of those founders, which I can talk more in terms of kind of founder learnings I've seen. Execution, just really strong execution skills on both business and tech. And then lastly, kind of idea, big markets, right? This is very much not niche ideas. It's incredibly large markets folks are going after with kind of mega trend influences. And then the terms, doing pre-seed investing, kind of earliest money in, often first money in, and making sure that that's aligned with setting the company up for success and my fund up for success too.
Thank you for walking us through that. I find that interesting that that's your framework, because one thing I hear over and over again on this show when I'm talking to, VCs, is that it's so much driven by the founder, the success, right? And that founding team. It just goes back to that over and over again. You kind of highlighted that in your framework.
Yeah, it's my single biggest belief, right? Is the tenacity and the connection to the problem that someone's solving that drives them through really difficult times, which there will be, right?
Mhm.
There always are. But that's what I'm backing in kind of an early pre-seed type investment.
It makes sense. And you talked about team dynamics and some of the learnings that you've had from your entrepreneurs, founders. Can you share some of those here? I think that would be
Yeah, I think
interesting.
it's two categories of team dynamics. The first is how do you know each other? And then the second is kind of what are your different skill sets? So the how do you know each other piece, and usually teams have 2 to 3 co-founders. I'd say that's the most common, right? Occasionally
Mhm.
you'll see a solo entrepreneur, occasionally you'll see a larger team, but usually 2 or 3. And the how did they know each other? Um, I am a fan of long-term relationships that have
Mm.
been tested and where people have kind of frameworks for disagreement, and disagreement without kind of animus and the ability to move forward quickly. Um, the highest and best relationship would obviously be prior co-founders. That happens
Mm.
every now and then, but beyond that, people that work together, people that were roommates. I
Mm.
love that relationship
Mhm.
as well in terms of just what it teaches you about another person and how well you know them. People that are starting a company that just met, I think that's a trickier situation where if you haven't navigated disagreeing on certain things and how you work through that, who has the last say on what, it just takes time. It doesn't mean it can't work. I think it takes a little bit more time. And then the second piece being how complementary is your skill set. I really want 2 different people on that founding team, not the same skill set. And kind of a classic example of this would be when a number of PhDs spin out from a lab together to work
Mhm.
on something. They're usually crazy smart and crazy driven, kind of with a solution that they have and to push that forward. But oftentimes they come with a similar skill set. And what I would prefer to see is kind of a diversity of skill set, because it is, let's call it a third or a half of your co founder equity. You really want to have people that contribute uniquely to that journey and in a different way in terms of leading technical, leading business, and being clear about kind of which areas of responsibility that they own.
That makes a lot of sense, especially how having a long prior relationship, like you said, where you've had some disagreements, you've worked things out, even living together would make this stronger as you pursue building your own company together.
Yeah, and historically, at StartX, as we'd meet founders and we'd ask questions like, "What have you disagreed on and why?" It was actually a red flag if somebody said nothing ever, or nothing yet.
Right.
That was usually, probably one of the poorer responses that you could
Mhm.
give. Like a clear disagreement with how you worked through it is something you really want to see.
Right. That makes perfect sense. And so, what are some of the other things that you kind of look out for with these early stage investments?
Yeah. I would say, kind of going back to my framework, some of the other pillars, right? Execution is a big
Mhm.
pillar. And two things I'm really looking for there, it's the technical prowess on the founding team to hit the next set of milestones. It doesn't
Mm.
mean that you need to have an engineering team that's so deep that you can be a $1 billion company with just the folks you have today. But it does mean that you need the technical talent on the founding team to drive to those pre seed milestones without having to spend 6 to 9 months of the initial company formation just looking to hire. Um, it's a better market to hire engineering talent in than it has been, but it's
Mhm.
still very hard, time consuming, expensive. So I'd love to see, my dream right team is two founders that have worked together before. One has a little bit more of a business hat, the other a little bit more of a technical hat, and they have four engineers ready to go from Apple, right, or
Right.
Meta or whatnot with them. That doesn't always happen, but I think that technical ability, and just understanding, is this just a solo business founder kind of waiting for that other half, right, or to meet that person or not, or to meet that engineering team. And companies like that succeed, right? There's definite examples of that, but I lean toward, particularly with technical problems that are being solved, at least one of the founders being pretty technical. And on the execution side, the second thing I'm looking for really is, how much business development did you do before starting?
Mm.
And before starting, because I'm investing in serial entrepreneurs, they're usually not having to raise just a couple $100,000
Mhm.
to fund, mm, food, right, while they
Mhm.
get going. They usually can kind of do that piece, and they're doing a lot of what I call pre-work before they even get going. So I often get asked the question, well, is this just a drawing on a napkin, right? An idea on
Mhm.
a napkin. And while it varies, I'd say that's largely not true. I'm pretty impressed by the amount of business development, and fundamentally, right, it's pretty easy. Like, are you building something someone will pay you
Mhm.
for, right? Is the
Right. Yes.
really honestly the question we're all just trying
Yes.
to answer at the end of the
Right.
day. And they're trying to answer it for themselves because they know that this is a 6, 10 year journey. You only have so many in your life. What you develop, or kind of what you put your life energy into, really matters. And they're spending a lot of time on, will there be a customer? Is this a viable business, before incorporating, before taking people they know's money into the
Mhm.
company. And so I'm looking for that. How well do you know your potential customer? Pre-seed, right? You don't have a customer yet typically, but I want you to know who those early customers are going to be and be able to tell me what they need to see to sign up as one of your customers. So that's some of the things that I'm looking for on the execution side, and differences, or evolutions, I guess is maybe the better word, evolutions of what I see, founders doing a second or third or fourth company, kind of some of the perspective they bring to it.
That's that's great. I like how you want them to get into that detail, and you're looking for that kind of experience because it's so important. So you mentioned that Zelda Ventures, you're a generalist, but is there anything right now that you're kind of gravitating towards, or areas that have a lot of interest for you?
Gosh, I really, Kate, to the extent it's possible, try to be very open-minded,
Oh.
about the idea. If I knew what the right idea was, maybe I would start a company. I like to have a founder that has a unique insight that's slightly contrarian or slightly different than other people, and to know why they believe that. Some of the things that we've invested in so far, there's certainly over the last 12 months, and a strategy like this will always reflect kind of what are experienced entrepreneurs looking to start. There's a lot of AI, but AI across a lot of different facets, right? Everything from what you would consider kind of infrastructure,
Mhm.
DevOps, kind of hardcore, right? AI
Mhm.
to administrative, fintech, medical billing, some really tangible, very clear, there's a customer today, why now, use cases, application layer use cases for that. About a third of my portfolio today has been healthcare related. So I do
Oh,
see a huge amount that's across robotics, digital health. It's not perhaps like biotech therapeutics. It's not that hardcore, but across a lot of kind of healthcare solutions, which is just it reflects the impact someone can have, the big outcomes that can be driven, and just the interests, I think, of repeat entrepreneurs.
that's so interesting. And I agree. And I think everyone listening is the founders are learning a lot about your, kind of investment philosophy and what you look for. So that's been so helpful. We always wrap up the show with just general advice that you have for founders, just that you've seen in your career.
Oh gosh. I mean, I feel like they're really the ones giving me the advice in many ways. You know, a lot of an investor's job is to say no, which is kind of like the part of the job that
Hmm.
really sucks and is unpleasant. But one of the things that I've learned from entrepreneurs is their interest in understanding why and their curiosity. And it doesn't mean they agree with you, right? Like they may
Hmm.
strongly disagree. But at StartX, when we would interview teams and many of them were not accepted at that point in time, we would do what we called feedback office hours, right? And you had the reasons, and you had to deliver those. And kind of what we would say is, look, this is either reality or it's perception. But either way, that's kind of powerful for you to understand, what came across,
Hmm.
so that you can adjust it if you choose to. But at least it's the perception. So I do try. As something's not a fit for me, to go back to kind of why that is and be pretty transparent about it. So, I mean, that's something really that founders have taught me, um, and continue to teach me about how to be a better investor and kind of
Hmm.
partner in what they're doing. Because I mean, I'll say, having raised my own fund, right, and being an entrepreneur in that respect, it is just a not yet, right? It's never really a no.
Right. That's a good way of looking at it. Yes, exactly. When you were raising and you've seen all these founders raise as well, do you have any advice like on the organization of your pitch or anything like that, or something that you say should definitely be included?
Yeah, I mean, first there's like, how do you go about getting meetings? Is a warm intro needed? I mean, I think you need to know what someone is interested in, right?
Mhm.
To tailor it.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think you should, provided you have someone connecting you, I don't think you necessarily should have to send the deck to get a meeting. I do personally find it helpful when someone sends a deck before the meeting, because I just come prepared
Oh.
with a lot of questions. Um, my questions are pretty. What I want to see in a deck is, the problem, the solution, the
Mhm.
market, the unique team, pretty much like the classic stuff that helps
Mhm.
me answer those questions, so I can use a time on a video call or a call, um, for the highest impact in terms of my follow-up questions with an entrepreneur.
That's helpful. Okay. And I like how you summarized. I mean, we think of those as the core attributes in a deck, but yeah, I think that was a helpful summary for those listening. So, StartX, do you have to be affiliated with Stanford as a founder to just
Yeah,
for those
a lot
listening?
of the companies will have kind of one of their three founders, right, have an
Okay.
affiliation, but there definitely is a sleeve of the program. I believe there continues to be, where for folks that don't have an affiliation, and a great amount of companies have come from that too.
Okay, great. And then Zelda Ventures, if somebody listening wants to learn more, where do they go?
Yeah, you can check out the website, Zelda .vc, or you can definitely shoot me an email at Suzanne at Zelda.vc.
Okay, and just before we let you go, I feel like there was a fun story on the name Zelda Ventures.
It is definitely a nod to the video game. I played a lot of that growing up in my family, and definitely
Oh,
the kind of, badass female character
yes.
associated with hunting for and finding treasure, which is very much what I aspire to do.
Yes, and you are doing. That's so fitting. I love it. Well, thank you for being here, Suzanne. It was really helpful how you shared your perspective. Not just, what you look for, but also what you've learned from your entrepreneurs and how you're, taking that into Zelda Ventures. I think people listening could learn a lot from what you shared. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kate. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Startup Success. To make sure you don't miss out on future episodes, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. Like what you hear? Tap the number of stars you think the show deserves in Apple Podcasts. For more tools and resources for your own startup success, check out birkelandassociates.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.